Okay, I'm going to call the council meeting to order. And there is no one excused from the meeting, and I'll just note for our audience that there are 7 of us in person, and Councillor Kelly Chrisman, Councillor Ellen Unraw, and Councillor Tracy Fife are on our life size. So that means that we are all present. We have item 3.1, the adoption of our August 5th minutes. Anne Marie moves their adoption. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. And what about the post-agenda items? Anything, the adoption of our minutes and our call for post-agenda, is there anything? Matt, I have one in camera, land, and that is something Lane will be handling later. Seeing nothing else, I'd ask for a motion to adopt the agenda. Brian moves. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. And that takes us to the question period, which is an opportunity for public to participate. And they could be here live, or they could be also on the live stream and send in a question on the chat line. And so I will leave it up to Susan, who is our moderator for the life size today, to let us know if there are any questions. And in the meantime, we have some guests in our council chamber, which is always nice to see. We enjoy when people come out, take the time to be here. So I would ask that we introduce ourselves, and maybe I'll start with the on-screen people that are above me and on both sides. And so Kelly's, in my view, on the top row there. So I'll move to you first, please, Kelly.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Kelly Chrisman. I'm from the west side of the county, Division 6.
Down to the middle row, which Ellen?
Good morning, everyone. This is Ellen Unra, and I represent the countryside around the village of Rosemary. Welcome.
Ellen is from Rosemary, in case that was hard to hear. And finally, our bottom row there, at least it's bottom row on my screen. I don't know what it is on your screens, you guys.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Tracy Fife of Division 5, which encompasses the area southwest around the city of Brooks, to include Lake Newell Resort, Castles area, and Antelope Creek. Welcome this morning for being.
All right, and then I guess I should have started with myself probably as who I am. I'm Molly Douglas, and I represent the Division 9 area, which is the area around Gem and Finnegan and Duck Lake, out in the northernmost part of the county of Newell, bordering on the Red Deer River. And we'll move over to my right and go around our table.
Good morning, Lionel Juss, from Division 10, which is an area north and east of Brooks.
Good morning, Brian DeJong, and I represent Division 8, which is around the village of Dutchess.
Good morning, Anne-Marie Phillipson, Division 3, Patricia Millicent area.
Good morning, Clarence Amulin. I represent Div 1, which is the Rolling Hills area.
Morning, I'm Matt Fensky, the County Administrator.
Good morning, it's Wayne Hammergan here. I'm from Division 4, which is Scandia, Rainier, and Bow City.
Good morning, Huey Kellen, Division 2 in the Tilly area.
Good morning, I'm Sandra Stanway, Brooks Bulletin.
And we'll go to our guests as well.
And I'd like to just jump in here. Dan Short has been letting his name stand as my replacement. So it's very good to see him here. So thanks for coming, Dan.
Looks like he would lower the average age of this group, possibly too, which I think is always a wonderful thing if he should get to this table. So good luck with that. And Nick, we haven't seen you for quite some time, and it's good to see you out as well. Okay, the public hearing part of our agenda doesn't happen until 11:30. So we'll skip over item 7 and move to we can do bylaw 8.2, correct? Item 8.2. Okay. Okay, we'll let him get up to speed. This is sort of that would be item, yeah. Perfect. Okay. Thank you for that. I think our delegation at 1 o'clock is in person. And I believe I saw an email from Todd. Did he say we could just skip the Ag Service Board report, or did I make that up? There was an email that came. Okay. All right, we'll go to item 11.1, additional spending approval, fire alarm system at Bassano Joint Use Facility.
Great. All right, so I'll take this one away. We received a letter from the CAO in Bassano summarizing some cost increases for a previously approved fire alarm system that we had initially had council approve on a 50-50 cost share basis. Original estimates for the project were $50,000. It's of course coming in higher now. I think we've seen a cost increase across the board for a number of the projects we've looked at. Cole's notes for the driving factors on the cost increase is the system needs to be engineered. The original estimate was prepared back in 2018 and costs have increased. And the original estimate did not consider that the entire facility needed to be covered. It just had the one side for the arena. So we're recommending an additional spending approval of the $44,700 to cover off the county's 50-50 share on that project.
Any questions? Seeing no, oh, Kelly?
Just a quick question for Matt. I think I read it somewhere, but just for clarity, where would these funds be pulled from? From the Recreation Fund. Thank you.
That's correct, from the Recreation Fund.
After I asked the question, I read it. Thank you.
Any other questions? Ellen?
Yes, I'm just wondering from staff, do we ever get competitive bids from other engineering companies, or do we always use MPE?
Yes, the question was about do we get competitive bids on these types of proposals, or
Yes.
do we always use MPE? I think is what Alan said.
I'm not aware of what bids the CAO and Bassano received. I could look into that, but my assumption would be they follow best practice similar to the County of Newell on these projects where you get competitive quotes.
I think it was mentioned in the
Kelly?
letter, wasn't it?
I'm of the opinion that both facilities need to be protected, and the arena being a 50-plus year building, and the joint use facility being a 10-year building, I'm sure that they have had their challenges. I'd like to make a motion to approve this as presented.
Any other questions? All in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. All right, thank you. And I see we will go back to item 8.2. 8.2 was the unauthorized use of county property for second and third readings. Mark. And then we'll go to Todd for his, I didn't read your whole email, Todd, and I thought we were really just not going to hear from you today. We will hear from you. Mark, go ahead.
Good morning, council members. This one has been before you once already for first reading, August 5th. I have nothing changed in the body of the request for decision other than asking for second and third reading on passing of the bylaw regulating the unauthorized use of property. Take any questions the council may have.
Any questions, folks? I am not seeing any, so we would entertain a motion for second reading. Tracy?
Yes, make a motion for second.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. And for the third reading, Hubie is making that motion. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you, Mark. We will go to Todd, and just for clarification for me, Jeff, item 8.3, that also could be, we can do that one as well today ahead of our delegations. Okay, Todd, take it away, item 10.1.
All right, thank you very much. Just thought I'd come in and give you guys a quick update on what we've been up to. I'm not sure if I mentioned this before, but if anybody knows somebody that wants to do an environmental farm plan, when Catherine left us for maternity leave, that left us a gap. So I've gone through that process now, and I'm happy to report that I'm now a EFP technician, and I can help producers through that process. So that's pretty fun. And if you've never been through that, it actually is kind of a neat way to take an overarching look at your farm, and it's a good way to see anything that may need some adjustments down the road. So obviously we're coming into fall. Spraying is just about done. The last kind of nice day for a while is going to be today, and we have one vegetation management technician still here, so he's out just cleaning up some of the areas that may have been missed in our noxious weed programming. Roadside spraying is done. Those trucks are being winterized now. The roadside mowers, they're done. The north second pass, we don't expect much on the south. They're going to clean up and do this the double pass on the paved county roads in the south, and then just do a little tour to see if there's any areas that need some weed control kind of work with the mower. So pretty exciting. And then we do have two staff members still doing the kind of last pass on the hamlets. Typically this time of year it's pretty bleak, but with that kind of 1.5 inch rain we got, it might make for one more pass after this, but we'll see. We'll always play that by ear. But then we get a nice long break, so it's all good. Great news for trees with Brooks Fish and Game. We're doing a tree planting at the Long Pump property, kind of north of the airport, just south of the Division A Councillor's place. So we're doing that on September 18th. We're starting that at 9:30. And I think there's 220 trees we're going to plant. And we met out there yesterday and we had a great visit. They've got everything lined up. They've got water flowing. It's very well done. So kudos to the Brooks Fish and Game for doing that. On the soil policy, not a whole bunch of progress in the last few weeks. We're obviously working with landowners and producers, and they kind of tied up with this little thing called harvest. So we put that on the back burners. We're kind of on a second draft of the policy. Realistically, I think we're at a point where we could bring it to you guys to take a view and see what you think and see if that's where we need to go. I think it would be a benefit to at least have it in front of this group before you guys leave if you're not coming back next time, just because you're involved in everything that's happened over the last number of years. So that's exciting. Farming Smarter, we did partner with Farming Smarter. Actually, I think there was 10 South Region municipalities that went in together, and they're writing some educational articles for us. I think we're on number 3 of 5 now. Just some wonderful farm writers doing that work for us, and it's been a great thing. I'm not sure if I shared any of them. I've been quoted in a couple, unfortunately, so I apologize if I did anything wrong, but I'll definitely share those at some point in time once we have the article series all wrapped up. Joe has been putting together a trapping course for October 1st and 2nd at Emerson Bridge. The trapping course, unfortunately, is only good for, it's only able to host 12 different people that want to take that course. And I think we have 11 signed up so far. So I might have misquoted. I think it's the 30th, the 1st, and the 2nd. Maybe that's what it is now. Thursday, Friday, Saturday anyways. So we're excited. We're going to host that down at Emerson. We've offered camping, and yeah, I think it's going to be a great course. So pretty excited about that. In talking about Emerson, it's still open till September the 20th. Obviously things slow down when the kids go back to school, but if anybody's a photography nut, this is a fantastic time of year to go to Emerson when them big trees start turning colors. It's just unbelievable down there. So pretty cool place to be. Outside of that, business as usual, just coming into all the good stuff. So happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Todd. Questions? Nothing even from Brian. Oh, Hubie. Hubie's up.
Todd, did you count all the baby hawks this year?
No, unfortunately, nothing stuck around. Those two, they hung out there for a while and then they buzzed off.
There's law around Tilly.
Is there?
There's no gophers left.
This guy. I got some news for you, Hubie.
He'll be back next year.
All right. Well, thank you, Todd. Oh, Lionel. Thank you.
Todd, time frame for keeping Emerson open, has that been set yet?
Yeah, sorry if I didn't mention it, it's open until September the 20th. Yeah. So that's, I shouldn't say that it's only open till September 20th. We do allow people to stay there after the season, and we're happy that they do. We just have them sign an after-season camping agreement so that we know who's down there, who we've allowed to be down there, and to make sure that they understand that if damages happen, we know they're the only ones down there, or the only 5 people down there, or whatever that is. We've had people camp there on Thanksgiving weekend, and we have people that stay there if they're here for pheasant hunting or something like that. They'll also stay there really late, which is bold, but camping is good.
Clarence?
You're not going to tell me that nobody goes down there and camps without our knowledge.
Well, camping is hard because you got to get through the gate with your camper. I'm not saying it's never happened that we've come across a broken gate, but
So it's locked.
yeah, you betcha.
Any other questions for Todd? Thanks, Todd. All right, we'll take your item, Jeff, at 8.3.
Thank you very much, and good morning again. Item 8.3, Subdivision Authority Bylaw is on agenda for first reading today. This Subdivision Authority Bylaw is being updated in conjunction and alongside our Land Use Bylaw update. One of the things that we've done in the Land Use Bylaw to, again, complete the overall goal of reducing red tape and making it easy to use and efficient was we were removing subdivision policy from the Land Use Bylaw and we wanted to revamp our Subdivision Authority Bylaw to include any of those policies or guidelines or directions that would have been lost in translation. I believe we've done a great job. We've worked with ISL Engineering again to facilitate the rewrite of this Subdivision Authority Bylaw. A lot of the information in here is quite standard. It starts out with definitions, talks about the subdivision authority, the powers and duties of the authority, membership and voting, office of the secretary. A lot of this stuff is right out of our existing bylaw. We've grabbed some from other municipalities who have recently updated their subdivision authority bylaws. And we've also, done what our overall goal is in all of our plans, bylaws, and other documents is to remove information that's unnecessary to be there because it's information that's located somewhere else. And some of that, if you notice the old subdivision authority bylaw and the new one, comes from the office of the secretary and just laying out that we are allowed to make our own rules so long as we follow the legislation and do so appropriately. The big part that's been added is Section 6, Subdivision of Agricultural Lands. In speaking with some of our municipal partners, one of the concerns with the land use bylaw was that these subdivision guidelines and regulations, by removing them out of the land use bylaw, would be lost. We do not believe that's the case at all. We believe that the subdivision guidelines that were included in our current land use bylaw are good reminders and good direction. However, we have higher level policy in our municipal development plan, in our intermunicipal development plans, with regards to preserving good agricultural land and not fragmenting it and ensuring that subdivisions follow that through the process as we make recommendations to MPC to implement those. So a few things that we've done with this subdivision bylaw, like I say, we've taken a lot of our policy from our current land use bylaw and transferred it into here. We are still going to allow a landowner to take a first parcel out of an agricultural quarter section without any concerns. We did have some policy on single lot developed farmsteads as well as single lot vacant parcels. And a lot of that policy to us was a lot of noise and information to sort through where we have those policies elsewhere and talking about preserving good agricultural lands and keeping them in production for as long as possible and so on and so forth. We will allow the first parcel out. We will also allow an 80-acre split, up to 80 acres for a first parcel out subdivision. The new subdivision bylaw will allow one additional subdivision from an agricultural quarter section without the need to redistrict. That was some comments that we've heard from the steering committee, and I think previously council, second parcels out for homesteads and such, being required to redistrict, and the red tape that's created for some of our landowners and whatnot for very little reason. So we've done that, but one thing we did ensure to keep in here is that would not be allowed in any of the IDP areas with our urban neighbors. So with the city of Brooks, with the village of Dutchess, village of Rosemary, or town of Bassano, and I think that will make them happy that there's going to be the ability to make sure these lands stay as an agricultural use, and a redesignation would be necessary to move anything else forward there. Again, restricts us from approving subdivisions where confined feeding operations are located, which is from current policy. We verbatim took the current policy on, enlargement, reduction, realignment of property lines where no new parcels are created, and that's embedded in the subdivision bylaw. Cut off parcels. We talked about that a lot. So where a rail line, an irrigation district, canal segregates a parcel, we will still allow that first parcel out subdivision to take place. Guidance on public or institutional subdivisions, which is all existing in our bylaw. And then the last one is a clause that would require anybody that is re-subdividing an agricultural small lot parcel, which we in our new land use bylaw are going from that small holding zone to an ag small lot, to redesignate prior to further subdivision of that parcel. And I know that's been on council's radar in the past, that these larger type subdivisions, these small holding subdivisions that come out, the ability to kind of put a pin in that and have a little bit of input on future subdivisions of those lands, so they don't fragment inappropriately and get busted up into smaller lands. I think that's a kind of a general overview. Like I say, our goal here was to simplify and reduce and allow staff and administration to do their job and implement our higher level statutory plans and other bylaws, so that they make sense in a situationally dependent circumstance. It's really hard to paint the entire county with a single brush, and we try to do that a lot. Some things make sense in certain locations where they wouldn't in other. These high-level policies, our commitment to agriculture, our commitment to not fragmenting lands, those are great policies, and we will implement those every time a subdivision application comes in. So we're really striving to simplify the process and simplify the documents so they're more easily understood by administration and applicants, the public developers. So you have this on agenda, request for first reading, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jeff. Are there any questions? Clarence.
I'll move first reading.
Okay, I saw no questions, and so Clarence has moved first reading. Any further discussion on that? Seeing none. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? That motion is carried. So that will head on its way to public hearing.
Thank you very much. We'll see you shortly.
Thank you. All right, we'll carry on in our agenda to item 11.2, the notice of a special meeting. And I responded to that. Anne-Marie, who all is included in having to participate in that?
Well, each municipality got this letter, and they have one vote, and we need a majority of votes to dissolve the Canadian Badlands. And so I will attend next Tuesday, the 13th, I think. Monday?
I think it's Monday, yeah.
Yeah, and
So-
we just have one vote.
Perfect. Okay. Are you anticipating any discussion on it at all, really?
Not at all.
No. No. Perfect. Okay. Foothills Little Bow, the agenda is there for next Friday. Well, can't be next Friday, is it? Yeah, it is. And I guess there's probably going to be changes as we go here because that was meant to be an in-person meeting. Is it still sounding like it will be? Matt?
They've got the option for those who aren't comfortable to attend in person to tune in via the Zoom link, and I believe they've got it set up for you to log your vote as well through Zoom if that's the preference.
Okay. Seems to be what's happening again. Change of venue. Where is it now? Okay. They are the ones with a big room, aren't they? They have like a salon or whatever you call that. Brian?
So looking at that agenda, I'm only speaking for myself, but I would be attending, but not just virtually. I just don't see the point of driving 4 hours for, I mean, there's not much there, to be quite honest. So, and you can participate virtually and do so effectively, I think. So I would encourage the rest of my fellow councillors to do the same, but I'll be there, but not in the screen. So anyways, as long as they can provide the links, I didn't get them yet, that'd be great. So.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. Request for expense reimbursement, Kelly, item 11.5.
Yes, thank you, Madam Reeve. Council, I want to express appreciation to Tracy for stepping up and providing her team well-dressed, well-represented, and on a hot day. But she brought her team from her home to the Bassano parade. This presentation is becoming few and far between, and it's a part of a parade that it greatly enhances the experience, whether you're a spectator or a participant on the wagon, which I was happy to be a part of. As agriculture is our background, and as we have in the past hired representation by way of team and wagon in the past, I would like to see the same accounting given to Councillor Fife as a way of appreciation and thank you for representing the county. So I would like to make a motion that $250, the same accounting fee, be mailed to Councillor Fife to reimburse costs. And I know that that does not cover costs of transportation or maintenance of the ponies or the wagon by any means. But it is a way of cutting into those expenses. That would be my motion.
Oh, Tracy?
Hi, yes, I just, I wanted to just say that I appreciate this. I also wanted council If you're not aware, I had, as a function of council, I have submitted 3 hours and 86 kilometers for my day at the parade. But I would also like to be asked to be excluded from this vote.
Oh, she said that she has on her expense claim a 3-hour claim for this, and the kilometerage on her expense claim, and she doesn't want to be involved in this vote as well. So, Wayne.
I'll make the motion that we reimburse.
Wayne Kelly has made the motion.
Oh, she has, sorry.
Yeah, Kelly made the motion. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion? Opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you, Kelly, and thank you, Tracy. All right, going on to Councillor payment sheets, item 11.6. Any questions on that? Otherwise, motion to accept. Anne-Marie moves. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Checks for payment. And we need a motion for a check for payment for over the $350,000 limit, which would be to Brooks Asphalt for the One Tree Road overlay.
I'll make that motion.
Hubie will make that motion. All in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. And then we have the regular payment register for council. Are there any questions regarding those payments at item 11.8? Seeing none, could I have a motion to accept the payment register? Lionel will move. All in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Request for function of council. Seeing none, we'll move on to, is Cole coming in? Oh, you saw him? Okay. Well, go ahead, Mark.
Okay. Monthly report for August. Municipal enforcement continues doing their duties, meeting partner commitments and whatnot. 31 warnings, 27 tickets issued, over 50 investigations for the past month. Fleet services staff continue to keep up with equipment and maintenance matters. Grader operators, man, it's been a dry year again. This is year number 2. Things have been ideal for road maintenance, but not great for washboard and dust, right? Not a whole lot we can do. We do have one matter coming before council for budget purposes, where it was the MD of Rocky View has been playing with the mixed design of their aggregate crush, where there's more clay being incorporated. It appears as though they have resolved their washboard issues, so that is something that a council will have to make a future decision on to see how we explore that and if there's some benefits to be realized in our region as well by doing such. Other than that, grader operators have approximately done 5.5 rotations of each of the respective areas, with each rotation taking approximately 20 working days. And obviously this summer, with little rain delay whatsoever, they've been pretty consistent on those 20 days. The training of 2 grader operators this past year, initial results right now, we appear to be saving about 50 liters of fuel a day. That's pretty significant when you consider how many days these machines are on the road and how many hours they operate. And also through the training, how they utilize their blades, being the pitch, the roll, all those kinds of things that they do to maintain a road. They've almost doubled how long they're capable of using their grader blades for. So that training is proving to be effective. I hope that's not a blip in the system or whatever where things go backwards, but we will have it in the budget for next year to try to get more of our operators trained. Cross-training, utilizing the in-house retention of those two that were trained to help out the others and grow and develop and see if we can get that across the board, because that would result in significant savings if it holds true. October 1st, we are planning our winter rig up, so plows and wings. Nobody likes to talk about snow, but let's be honest, October 2nd, October 1st has been consistent for the last 3 years with a major dump of snow. So being prepared is one of our goals. Moving on to truck drivers, I do believe we are 100% done the gravel program, resurfacing of our roads this year for the goals. So that would be 320 kilometers were planned and 320 kilometers accomplished. So those guys are now working on, I believe next week, they're going to start rigging up their plow trucks for winter operations, and then starting to do some of the stockpiling program that we have planned. With that 2022 gravel road resurfacing program, that's all under analysis right now with our gravel foreman, and will be in place before his time is done with us for the season. Maintenance operators, seasonal staff, they're all working on various activities. The recovery of eroded soils from county roadside ditches, approximately $240,000, so that is well below what my gut was telling me when we were in a reactive or reactionary state to what was going on in our region, but it's still $240,000 is what the cost rolls up to be so far, and should stay pretty close to that. And most all of that was done through contracted services, and do want to give a shout out to the EID as well for being one of those major partners on assisting us getting those ditches cleaned up. Construction projects, Range Road 15-1 was kicking off, I believe, yesterday. That's where shoulder pull's going on. We got some other drainage projects in 4 subdivisions immediately around Brooks and whatnot. The Evergreen subdivision drainage work is complete, and Johnston Estates are kicking off here. Land acquisition in Johnston Estates as well to improve sightlines and whatnot remains in negotiations. And then also Range Road 16-4 land negotiations to get that road back on road allowance is also in place. We are evaluating what a winter gravel program could look like for us. So instead of doing stockpiling, if we just gravel straight from our pits to see if there would be cost savings. We do have some concerns about frozen lumps and things like that may end up on roads or get lodged in our belly dump spread trucks and trailers. So we're trying to investigate how other counties are dealing with those potential hazards that come about, not just for staff, but also the motorists, before we really dig into and put some effort into trying that. Along with that, under engineering, One Tree Road overlay project, that's complete. Line painting was completed. The rest of the county paved roads were also line painted as part of that. Don't forget, we are only doing one direction of travel each year, so a center line and one shoulder lane. So that's done. What else we got here? County pathway extension, the 2.4 kilometers from where it terminates here at the county building down to the intersection of Township Road 18-2 south of the office here. That is being worked on. I've been getting agreements in place for crossing of facilities such as AltaLink, CNRL, and TC Energy. And once we hear back on the funding approval from the province, we'll be able to forge ahead immediately, hopefully. EID County Partnership on Drainage continues. I know that they are digging ditches up in that area. I have a few landowners to resolve yet with that new policy that we put in place with the encroaching pivots and stuff. And I hope to have that wrapped up this week, if not early next week. What else we got? Lots of things going on in other business. We're always striving to get automation into a lot of our programs and stuff. A lot of things going on in Laserfish right now, from inspection forms, automated workflows from those people in the field, to managers, to sign off, to having pictures, and all those sorts of fun things that we need to have documented and keep track of are going on. E-ticketing process with municipal enforcement and the province's initiative on that. And most importantly, probably is asset management plans, and then getting things related to our budget preps. So that's really where we're at. And if there's any questions, I'd be glad to attempt to answer them.
Thanks, Todd. Todd. Geez.
Uh-oh.
Mark.
No forgiveness now.
I must have said thanks to Todd, so thanks, Mark. Clarence, question.
I guess graveling on frozen roads. How would we evaluate how much gravel is lost when none of it obviously is going to work into the road? Like how do you even evaluate something like that?
So I'm not really sure that I have to do the evaluation, because some of our peers have already done that evaluation. The way that one of our peers did that evaluation was they laid, I don't know if they went the full mile or just a half mile with laying poly in a roadside ditch to see how much gravel actually ended up in that roadside ditch from a winter spread. And they found that generally it wasn't any more or less than what was done in a summer spread. And a person has to remember, a lot of that aggregate actually ends up there from motorists driving down the road. We don't want to believe that, but if you stood on the shoulder of a road, you're going to get hit with a few pieces of gravel every time a motorist goes past you. There's always bouncing rocks, right? Blame it on the people with brand new tires. Don't blame it on the people that run bald tires, I guess. I don't know. It's one of those things that sits with me too, that, the grader operator is going to go throw it all in the ditch, because they're looking for that hard pack when they adjust their blade for winter snow removal. It's a matter of training and education on operators. We've been trying to get that 1 to 2 inches of snow left on our roads to let traffic pack it down, because otherwise we do risk throwing that gravel in the ditch. Sometimes it happens. It's inevitable. Nobody's perfect. But one of our peers had done a thorough investigation on that for their council and stuff, and they found there was really no significant impact to winter or summer spreads. The challenging thing for me, my opinion of it is, we know already that when we do the winter stockpiling, there are large lumps that come out of those stockpiles that end up in the trucks, and the guys do have to sometimes put extra effort into getting those chunks out of the truck box. That's using an end dump. Now you're going to take frozen chunks potentially and put it in a belly dump. The gate's only open so far. So when it gets lodged in the bottom, it means an operator has to get either underneath or into the box to get that with a pry bar and bust it out of there somehow. Those are the logistics of things that we want to figure out, how our peers are dealing with and coping with those challenges, and how they combat them so they don't incur in the field or during the program. Got to figure it out. I want to be successful with it, right? But there's always some challenges and hurdles when you get into new things that, as you work through them, you find better ways of doing things. But some of our peers have that experience, and I think we need to learn from their learnings as to what we can apply here before we jump in with both feet.
I guess it's the old farmer in me coming out now, but when you're loading that stuff, this frozen stuff is mostly on the edge. Put it somewhere, run that tractor over it. I mean, that'll make a whole lot of difference, but I'm just wondering if we ever do things like that.
Yeah, so some of the information that I've been privy to, because I'm not out there directly supervising staff in the gravel pits and whatnot, even when they're removing gravel out of the stockpile in winter, they can only penetrate so far into that stockpile, whereas some things might be frozen above that are at risk of coming down on equipment. So then they have to work their way around that stockpile to avoid that stuff, because our loaders only go so high, right? We can only touch so much stuff. Breaking that stuff In the process of, well, now you're down to time delays as to how fast you're turning product around from pit to actual road surface, right? So again, I just say those are some of the learnings and things that we need to explore with our peers. I don't believe that we are unique whatsoever in our environment to say that our situation is any different than others. You go to northern municipalities, they're going to have moisture in their aggregates too, because you need a moisture content in there for things to work. Yeah, I'm interested to learn more and to explore this option, and we anticipate that there are savings behind it, but are there savings behind it? I have things in my head that tell me too that you could be spreading that gravel on the road, but you incur all those other challenges, or another snow event comes, so you're spending more time flipping and flopping potentially equipment out on a more reactionary basis than maybe planned. I don't know. It's something that we would have to evaluate and consider.
Hubie?
Thanks, Molly. So, Mark, 2 items. I think it's a great idea with this grader training, because a lot of people complain about the roads, and when you train those guys to do it right, it's a good thing, so I'm glad to see that happening. The other item is the Tilly landfill closure. Is this the area east of the transfer station?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions? Kelly? Wayne?
Morning, Mark. My question is around the recovery of eroded soils. You used the word partnership with the EID and helping the recovery. Was that at no charge, or did we contract that service to EID?
We used various contractors, including the EID, for the recovery of eroded soils. Everybody has been compensated based on the rates that were being paid.
Thanks, Mark. I just wanted that clarity.
Wayne?
Mark, could you touch on this washboard project that you're looking at with the mixing clay and how that's working?
Well, I don't have enough hair on my head to be called the crazy mad scientist to know how it works, but it's all chemistry in your soils and your aggregates. How much of the clay material you need in there to get things to bind so that moisture is retained and keeps things locked up. A lot of the soils around here, being farmer industry and stuff, we're in silty sandy soils here, right? So we don't have a great clay content in much of our aggregates, particularly out of Bassano and Steville. When you get up into ballast, you'll see a lot of darker aggregate being spread on our roads because we've been hauling out of ballast a little bit more than what we have been out of the others to try to preserve some of those aggregate resources longer for us. It has a bit of a coal mix in it that makes it darker. People think we're treating it with calcium chloride or some kind of dust abatement. Not true. But it is acting different on our roads. It's performing different. If we can get a good source of clay and blend that off, as I believe as the MD of Rocky View has been through this process, they paid an engineer to come in and do a bunch of this evaluation and test all of this. That's what we're looking to try to benefit from. And supposedly or allegedly, they've reduced their complaints on washboards significantly on their roads.
All right, Mark can come back and answer any other questions later. I would like to quickly work in Cole's report because we have public hearing at 11:30. So, Cole, thanks, Mark. Cole's item is at 12:01.
Thank you, Douglas and councillors. I'll try to make this quick so you can get to your next part on your agenda. We'll start with the Hamlet distribution and wastewater systems. We're still waiting for, if you recall, we had a pump pulled from the Rolling Hills distribution pump house. We're still waiting on parts and for that to be repaired. There's still 2 more operational pumps, so we're not too worried about it, but it should be coming in the next several weeks here. We don't have an ETA currently. Lead testing, the government mandated lead testing on homeowners services is progressing really well. We have finished up with all the hamlets that the county owns, so we're done them. The only thing that we have left are the 6 county new water project areas that the Alberta Health Services has split it up into. So that should be completed hopefully next week. So then all our lead testing will be complete for the county of No. So far, all the results have been good and favorable, so nothing to report there. All our summer water analysis have been completed for the hamlets and the County Newell Water Project, as well as the NRSC water treatment plants. We've done those and have those results, so that's part of our government mandated summer analysis that we have to do. So we do biannual testing for the water. Wastewater collection, all the air releases on the Lake Newell Resort forest main that leads to the city of Brooks have been checked and the maintenance completed on them. And all the manholes have been hydrovac'd out that had any groundwater in them. And the Patricia sewer lines, we've been monitoring those over the last several years, and everything has been visually inspected and everything is functioning properly. So that's good to see. And that basically is the extent of my report. I'd just like to add to, there have been some taste and odor complaints about our water, and I'm sure some of you have noticed that as well. What we are telling people and what is happening is due to the extremely warm temperatures that we experienced in July and the state of the water, our raw water supply at Lake Newell, it's causing a little bit of organic growth in there. And then when those organics die and decompose, you get some chemical compounds, mostly geosmin, and that's what causes the earthy and musty smells. So we can combat that with some of our treatment processes at the water treatment plant. We have done that, so we're hoping once that all moves out of the system in the next couple of weeks, it'll be back to normal. But it's mostly due to just the state of the raw water, and that's typical. It doesn't matter what body of water it is. That's very, very common in the Great Lakes. City of Toronto has the same notice to the public as we do, that this is a naturally occurring thing in these hot summer months. So that's the cause of it, and that's why. So if there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Thanks, Cole. That's good information for all of us to have, for sure. Huey.
So Cole, when it's the odor in the water, do you have to add more chloramines to it?
No.
No, it's good.
No. Well, there's a couple other things that we do add or we can add. Potassium permanganate is one, and powder activated carbon is another. So the best way I can describe it is the powder activated carbon acts kind of like what your Brita water filter, if you have one in your fridge, would. It adsorbs some of those compounds and removes them, and it definitely helps quite a bit. So that's what we're doing right now.
Wayne?
So as the temperature gets colder, this problem is just going to go away.
Yes, once the organics die off, and then they would, after those compounds that they release during the decaying process, once that's done, then it'll be back to normal. And you can detect some taste and odors it's literally in parts per trillion, so it doesn't take much. And like I said, we do have things that we can combat it with. We're a pretty big water treatment facility, and we have the tools that we can do it. It's just sometimes you don't really notice it until it's actually in the water, and then once we start it, then it's kind of in the system, and it takes a while for it to get out. Like I've mentioned in the past, it takes about 8 days for water to get from the water plant to Bassano, for instance. So it's not like we can just snap our fingers and it'll be over immediately. So it'll take a while for that to get out of the system. Yes, completely potable, no issues as far as safety. Aesthetics is the only thing.
And it's still a heck of a lot better than it used to be. So
This is true.
we're all happy. Brian.
Just quick, you mentioned the lead testing, and I'm just curious whether other jurisdictions are running into issues with finding it. I mean, logically, the government wouldn't ask us to do this if there wasn't a concern. Are you aware, or are you privy to any information from other jurisdictions outside of the treatment plant that you deal with, as far as if they're having issues?
So this government mandated part is because we do lead testing as part of our approval code at the water treatment plant and in our distribution system. So what this mandate has been for was actually on homeowners' property. So that's why we're having to get information, approval for homeowners for us to go in there and sample. So we're trying to see, especially in the 60s, 70s and earlier, lead services were more commonplace. So it is on the homeowner's property, not part of the county in this situation's owned distribution system. So the government wants us to go out and look for problems that could be on homeowners' properties. So that's why we're testing at individual people's houses and homes and stuff like that. And the only information I've been privy to that's outside of what we do is the City of Brooks. They've completed all their testing and their results were favorable as well. There's no issues. So that's the only ones I'm aware of. You're welcome.
Any other questions? All right. Seeing none, we'll just do a quick motion for the acceptance of our municipal reports. Lionel will move that. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. And thank you, Cole, as always, for being here to answer our questions. And thanks for the busy summer you've had, I'm sure.
Yes, thank you very much for your time.
You bet. All right. We have a public hearing today, and obviously anybody who's interested in attending should be here by now because we're a little later than usual. So we need, first of all, a motion to move into public hearing. Anne-Marie will move that. All in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. And so we'll ask our planning and development staff to give us some information on this public hearing. And just a reminder, we haven't had a public hearing for quite some time, I think, that the purpose of a public hearing is to get information. All right, Jeff, go ahead.
Good morning, Reeve Douglas, and thank you very much for the opportunity to speak at this public hearing. First off, I'd like to hand the mic over to Brian Conger with ISL Engineering and Land Services to introduce himself. As well, Brian has a presentation to go through, with regards to what we've done, the process, and why we've done what we've done throughout the last 9 months on this land use bylaw update. So I'm going to let Brian take it for now.
Okay, and you know what? I should do some introductions as well. You introduced Brian, which reminded me like I said, we haven't had one of these for a while, so we should do some introductions. Well, first of all, start with our council, then we'll go around the room. I'm Molly Douglas, and I am from the north part of the county, Finnegan area, and we'll go to our screen for their introductions. We'll start in my bottom left on the screen is Ellen.
Good morning, I'm Ellen Unra, and I represent the area around the village of Rosemary, Division 7.
That's Ellen from Rosemary. You couldn't hear it. And I'll go up now to Kelly.
Good morning. I'm Kelly Chrisman. I'm from the west side of the county, Division 6.
Finally, Tracy.
Good morning, Brian. Nice to see you.
Okay. Lionel.
Good morning. I'm Lionel Juss from Division 10, which is the center of the county, basically, north and east of Brooks.
Good morning, Brian DeJong, Div 8, and I represent the area around the village of Dutchess.
Good morning, Anne-Marie Phillipson, Division 3, Patricia Millicent area.
Good morning, Clarence Samuel, I'm representing the Rolling Hills area.
Morning, Matt Fensky, County Administrator.
Good morning, Wayne Hammergan, Division 4, which is Scandia, Rainier, and Bow City.
Good morning, Huey Kellen, Division 2 in the Tilly area.
We'll go to Sandra.
Good morning, Sandra Stanway, Brooks Bulletin.
And then we'll move over to my left. And finally, thank you. Thanks, everybody. All right, welcome, Brian.
Thank you for having me today. Reeve Douglas and Council.
Brian, you're going to have to speak into your mic. This is a strange room. Sometimes it's hard to hear in it. And
how's this?
I hope it's fine. Sometimes it's the people over in there, those other areas. So
perfect. My name is Brian Conger. Thank you for having me today. I'm the Community Planning Manager at ISL Engineering and Land Services Limited. And I'm the primary consultant on assisting yourselves with the update to the land use bylaw. So today I'll be going through just an overview of the land use bylaw, the planning process, and the timeline involved in the project. I'm going to compare at a very high level the proposed land use bylaw with your current bylaw, a little bit on circulation feedback that was received and the nature of edits that we've undertaken since first reading, and then I'll be available for questions and answers. And then Jeff Tiffin has more of a detailed response to the circulation feedback. So I'll be high level, but I can go right down to the red line at question period if you'd like. So just a little bit of an overview here. The land use bylaw is among the most important planning documents in the municipality. It's required for day-to-day operations and processing of development applications. It regulates land use and development. And so it organizes the county into land use districts, outlining what's permitted and discretionary in each district. The current land use bylaw was adopted in 2017, and over the last 4 years now.
I just have to interrupt. Sorry, I'm getting messages from our people that are not with us in the room that they can't really hear you very well. So you really have to speak right into that mic, or maybe take your mask off. I think there's nobody that close to you that.
How's that?
I think that will probably help a lot. I hope.
Keeps my glasses from fogging up too, so I'm happy with that.
Yeah, these just speak into the mic.
Okay. So there was a need for the new land use bylaw to function more efficiently, and that's why we were retained to assist with that update. So over on the right here, we've got the nesting of different legislature, statutory plans and that sort of thing. And it's important to note that the intermunicipal development plan, the municipal development plan, the area structure plans, and any area redevelopment plans that you have in the county, and I know of one, these 4 documents are commonly referred to as statutory plans. And under the MGA, it's important that these plans are consistent with one another. Now, down one level into implementation, we've got the land use bylaw. And the land use bylaw is the implementation tool for the statutory plans. That's an important distinction. It's here to implement these plans, but it is a standalone document. Although it's required by statute, required by the MGA, it's not under the definition of the MGA a statutory plan. So that little distinction is a theme of my presentation today. I'll get to more of that in a minute. With respect to the planning process and timeline, so work for us really kicked off in January this year. We prepared the community consultation plan, reviewed the current land use bylaw, and prepared what we call a content matrix. And so what this is we quite literally do a best practices analysis of several other land use bylaws in other rural municipalities. And then we compare how the current land use bylaw looks to best practice in other municipalities and propose a rearrangement of the content. And that's how we're going to be presenting the bylaw to you today. So that's the sections that were created for the bylaw. And then we had, as I mentioned, we did the best practice research, and we had a working committee orientation meeting. And so there's 3 councillors present today that were members of the working committee. The next step is section by section preparation. So after we've reorganized the contents of the current land use bylaw, we go through a detailed review and revision of each section. And so that was done in March through May of this year. After we've gone and looked at after we went and looked at the individual sections, we then consolidated them back into one document and had a second committee meeting to go through the proposed edits at that time and allow for feedback from working committee members. And then we also undertook land use mapping. That was the precursor to the community consultation stage, and that was primarily in June and July. And we had a virtual open house that ran from June 21st to July 11th, and an online survey. And off the top of my head, I think it was 170 unique visitors to the virtual open house. During that time, administration met with the town of Bassano to discuss proposed content and feedback. We also received feedback at that time from Alberta Transportation that was incorporated into the land use bylaw prior to first reading. We discussed some of the edits with the working committee based on what we heard from the online survey and some feedback that we received, and then we prepared the first reading draft, which is what you had seen previously. Once the first reading draft was submitted, we moved into the refinement and adoption stage. So first reading was August 5th. There was then circulation and legal review. And my understanding, there was the IDP committee meetings with both Brooks and Rosemary. We also prepared a standalone subdivision authority bylaw, which was read for first reading this morning. And we prepared a red line draft, and this red line draft reflects the feedback that we received from your legal counsel, Brownlee LLP, as well as some of the feedback from the IDP committee meetings and some letters that Jeff will talk to in more detail here in a minute. And here we are today at our public hearing. So comparing the proposed land use bylaw to your current one, we went out with the goal of creating a more user-friendly land use bylaw. So what this meant was more orderly, simplified, clarified land use regulations and definitions. We increased the use of tables and diagrams in your land use bylaw in order to summarize regulations and improve readability. We updated the figures within the land use bylaw, and a minor consolidation of districts from 14 to 12. There's some municipalities out there where we've actually removed 20 districts. Districts quite often get added, they very rarely get taken away. So this was a good time to make sure that they work. The resulting reduction is from 257 pages to 87 pages of content. And one of the other things we've done is we've migrated the land use map right onto the county's GIS system for easier identification. There's nothing worse than going through a manual 300-page map book. So the new interface will make the bylaw a lot more approachable. With respect to the individual sections and some of the key differences here, so for section 1 and section 2, this is where we talk about the purpose and the development process. The subdivision authority content has been removed from the land use bylaw and inserted into a standalone bylaw. We've also introduced penalties for contravention of the land use bylaw and updated the content with respect to development not requiring a permit. I don't have a slide on that. That's a couple slides worth of content, but it's in the draft that has been provided to you. And we clarified public notice and consultation requirements. With respect to the general regulations, we reorganized the content thematically along buildings, parcels, and setbacks, and several others. We introduced new content for stripping, grading, excavation, and filling. That was a cited need for some more regulation there. We updated the parking dimensions within the county, and we updated the signage regulations, and we reformatted that content so it's easier to read and interpret. With respect to the specific uses and activities, we simplified the approach to regulating home-based businesses. Obviously, COVID-19 has completely rearranged what working from home looks like for people throughout the world. One of the things that we've changed here is home-based business 1, which is quite limited in scope, but that it doesn't require a development permit. We also introduced new approach to regulating solar development along freestanding, rooftop, and wall-mounted solar panels. And that table there just shows you some of the differences between home-based business 1 and home-based business 2, which does require a development permit. I might need to zoom out on you here. Nope, okay. So the land use districts themselves, what we've done here is we've created a new direct control district regulations. So if there is a new airport, a new motor sports park, a motocross track, that sort of thing, a new natural gas plant or shooting range, the bylaw states that these are to be direct control only. And this really comes down to nuisance factors and potential other implications of approving such developments. So a DC allows U.S. Council greater control, and it also increases your awareness of what's going on and the impact of these types of developments. We've merged agricultural and single lot agricultural districts into a new Ag Gen district. The acreage residential and grouped rural residential districts have also been merged into a new residential rural district. And we've created a new residential manufactured home park district. And what we found in our review of the current DCs is quite a few of the direct control districts were created to enable manufactured home parks, and we have the ability to now just refer to a standing district in your land use bylaw. With respect to the fringe district, we've merged this into the new Ag Gen district as well. I can get this slide on one page. There we go. So a little bit of a background on the district. The French district comes from the 1990 version of the land use bylaw. It might actually be older than that, but that's the one bylaw that was at hand that we were able to confirm. So that is a time when the regional planning commissions controlled development in rural municipalities across Alberta. So pre-1995 Municipal Government Act. Today, the more appropriate planning tool to shape development in the rural-urban fringe, which is the area between rural and urban municipalities, is the Intermunicipal Development Plan. The county has IDPs in place with all of its municipal neighbors. There is overlap between the various IDPs and the land use bylaw, and this is being discussed between administrations currently. And although this district is designed to prevent certain types of development in the rural urban fringe and the overall fragmentation of land, a landowner can apply to change the land use district of their parcel of land. So really it comes down to what the fringe district was actually intended to do, what was actually happening in practice, and there's other tools such as the standing IDPs, and content within the Subdivision Authority Bylaw that will help to regulate development within the rural urban fringe, but allow for agricultural development to continue. Last but not least, we merged public services, alternative jurisdiction, and parks and recreation districts into a new special parks and public services district, and created a new special natural open space district. And for section 6, this was the glossary. The current land use bylaw had definitions in several sections of it. We've taken all the definitions, moved them into one section, and put them at the back of the land use bylaw. You see, historically, land use bylaws were written very much like regulation. So you put the definitions at the front. In the last decade, increasingly, land use bylaw definitions have been put into the back like an index to reflect the nature of how they're actually being read by the public. And if it happens to be a specific use that is a discretionary permitted use, it's highlighted so it catches your eye a little bit better when going through the bylaw. So with respect to the circulation feedback and the nature of edits, first reading, as mentioned, was August 5th. After the bylaw received first reading, administration circulated it to adjacent municipalities and various commenting agencies. Legal review was conducted by Brownlee LLP, and the edits received from Brownlee focused on bylaw content that overlapped with other regulation, as well as some edits for clarity. So you'll see in the comment version, Brownlee, quite often when there was overlap between the LUB and either the MGA or the subdivision development regulation, their recommendation was get that out of the LUB, that the content was redundant and unnecessary. As well, administration held IDP committee meetings with Brooks and Rosemary. The edits from these focused on permitted and discretionary uses in the Ag Gen district in particular, as well as setbacks for pits and quarries. And these have been increased from 500 meters to 1 kilometer. As well, there was some edits that I made for clarity, and the Ag Gen district exceptions were removed from the land use bylaw and put into the subdivision authority bylaws. So that's the appropriate bylaw for that content. That concludes my presentation, and I'll pass the mic over to Jeff, and if there's any questions, I'm happy to do so.
Yes, council questions? We'll pass it back over to Jeff.
Thank you very much. Attached to the council agenda as part of the public hearing, I drafted within the discussion portion of the request for decision that was submitted, I wanted to go through and review all the concerns that we've heard from our neighbors and our partners and other sources, as well as some edits that we internally identified needed to be made. I just really want to go through these and at a high level for the most part, but I do think it's important to go through and just advise as to what concern was identified, where it was identified, and how we're addressing that. So a lot of these concerns are similar in nature between the various partners and the various responding agencies. So I'll do my best not to double touch on any of these areas. So as Brian mentioned, the draft land use bylaw is attached to the agenda. It's a redlined copy that shows all of the additions, deletions, and markups that we've made since first reading on August 5th. Along with that, we requested that Brian go through there and add additional comments in the right margin, just to kind of clarify where those comments stemmed from and where those edits stemmed from, whether they were from legal, an IDP meeting, another circulation, so on and so forth. So to get to the internal edits first, it was obviously very important for us to run the new land use bylaw through legal review, and Brian mentioned that Brownlee LLP did come back with a number of recommendations, mainly to remove duplicated information, which again was one of our main goals in redoing this land use bylaw, was to get the noise out and ensure that it was put together in a more effective and efficient manner. We recognize that the addition of hangar as a use at the airport in the rural business district was necessary. It was inadvertently added to the rural residential district, and that's what you saw for first reading. So we've actually removed that from there and added it to the rural business district, so that development at the airport can take place currently. Brian mentioned that we are looking at moving airports to direct control, and in fact we are going to do that, and we've talked with the city as well as the town of Bassano to indicate that we want to sit down after our land use bylaws read in and discuss how we can create direct control districts around those airports to more efficiently manage the development and reduce the red tape and timelines that applicants are seeing with the current process. One other thing we identified was an agricultural operation. Didn't specifically state that it didn't require a development permit on agricultural lands. So we've added that to table 2, which includes the development not requiring a permit. So that was about all the internal edits that we made ourselves. The rest are going to be through discussion and consultation with external agencies and municipal partners. So on August 10th, we had an intermunicipal development plan meeting with the City of Brooks prior to the joint services meeting. We collected minutes, we circulated the minutes, and we took into account the comments received at that meeting and amended the bylaw according to those comments for presentation at second reading. To go through a few of those concerns, one concern was small wind energy systems being located too close to the city. Just the clarification that these are in fact small wind energy systems intended for on-site use and not industrial scale wind energy systems. We did hear the concerns about that, so we decided to move that out of a permitted use category and into a discretionary use, where there would be the ability for the IDP committee to comment and provide comments on any concerns with that type of development. But before being approved by our Municipal Planning Commission. There's also some additional regulations in the use specific section of our land use bylaw regarding setbacks for these wind energy projects and height restrictions on them as well. So that is there, and again, not for industrial use, for on-site use of the energy produced. We heard from some IDP members that 500 meters was too close to the city boundary to develop a pit or a quarry, be that gravel, fill dirt, whatever it was. We discussed at the IDP committee meeting, and the members of the committee thought that an increase to 1,000 meters would be acceptable. So the new draft bylaw attached to the agenda does reflect that change, that it has been moved to 1,000 meters. We heard at the IDP meeting that there was concerns over servicing requirements for developments such as a hotel motel, which was listed as a use in the agricultural general district. While we don't believe that this is the place to identify servicing requirements and whatnot, we find that to be a better fit in the intermunicipal development plan. We do recognize that there were concerns with the move away from agricultural uses in the fringe district by removing that fringe district, and it's understandable. So we've went ahead and we have removed hotel motel, industrial light, animal health inclusive, and care facility child from the agricultural general land use district, which means anybody wanting to start do any of these businesses or uses in an IDP area would require a land use redesignation to facilitate that. So those were the concerns that we heard at the IDP meeting on August 10th. Moving on August 30th, CAO Fensky received a letter from city administration citing some of the same concerns that we heard at the IDP meeting, as well as some additional concerns. So I'm just going to go through those one at a time here, kind of at a high level, just to show that we have addressed and touched on some of these, and maybe explain some rationale why administration feels that these are a fit in our new land use bylaw. The first concern was the removal of the fringe district and its ability to control and direct appropriate development in the IDP area. We feel as administration that the existing fringe district didn't have much of a use in terms of controlling or directing development. The process to develop in the fringe area, if it wasn't a use allowed in the fringe, would be for somebody to come in and apply for a land use redesignation to that type of district that would allow for that use, which would include, circulation to the IDP committee, comments from the IDP committee, public hearing, and finally a land use redesignation prior to the application for the development permit. We feel that by removing some of these non-agricultural uses in the Ag Gen district, that we are facilitating that. We are allowing the agricultural use of the land to continue with those uses, but removing some of the red tape and the 6 and 8 week waiting times for somebody to come in and redesignate that land. Some other uses that we have also moved from permitted to discretionary that I'll touch on as we go forward here a little bit, is also going to provide the IDP committee to be circulated these applications and provide comment to come back to our Municipal Planning Commission prior to rendering a decision on those applications. The other concern in a couple of letters that we received, they cite the issue of the IDP directly talking to the fringe district and how by removing the fringe district, that is going to make inconsistencies between the two documents. We are well aware of that. We know it's going to happen when we read this bylaw into place, but we have had the discussion about doing some minor amendments and updating that. We know right now some of the excerpts that are received on the letter make reference to our land use bylaw that was rescinded in 2007. So these inconsistencies are already in the IDP. We know that. We're in the process of working towards a new IDP with the City of Brooks. However, we feel that we're in a comfortable position that the removal of this fringe district isn't going to affect any of those policies in there. Again, the first reading of the subdivision authority bylaw is going to also assist in the concerns with fragmentation of agricultural lands adjacent to the city in the intermunicipal development plan area, and we work to transfer some of those subdivision guidelines out of our land use bylaw and into the subdivision authority bylaw to make it clear for staff, for applicants. There is a concern with the agricultural building listed as a permitted use, where it used to be discretionary. Again, this decision was made to move an agricultural building to a permitted use based on history. We have sent agricultural buildings to the Intermunicipal Development Plan Committee before, and not much discussion has occurred. Anywhere else in an ag gen district, an agricultural building doesn't even require a development permit, assuming it meets the requirements and the setbacks of that land use district. We feel that that moving agricultural building to a permitted use is keeping in line with the policies and the feeling of the IDP to keep that an agricultural district. And again, it's removing red tape and waiting time for somebody who wants to put up grain bins or corrals or hay storage, something like that, and will allow them to get their operation moving much quicker. There's a concern that agricultural processing and agricultural regulated were listed as permitted uses, and that if those applications came in and met the requirements of that land use district, then we would be obliged to offer that permit. One thing here is agricultural regulated was already a discretionary use in the ag gen land use district. However, agricultural processing was under permitted use. So what we've done is we've taken agricultural processing and moved that to a discretionary use, which again will afford the IDP committee to provide comments on any development in the ag processing. On top of that, we've also had agricultural intensive as a permitted use, and we've done the same with that and moved that to a discretionary use. Again, in an effort to ensure that all affected parties or possibly affected parties may have the ability to comment on that development prior to it being put before MPC. Again, small energy wind conversion systems, WECs, that was noted in the letter, and I already spoke about that because it was identified at the IDP meeting as well. There's a concern that utilities are listed as a permitted use in the ag gen district, where it used to be a discretionary use in the current fringe district. Utilities are defined as the system or works used to provide service such as potable water, including reservoirs, sewage disposal, waste management, waste transfer facilities, or storm systems. So these utilities are basically for county and city infrastructure and projects to be built out. Administration is open to the discussion of moving those to a discretionary use. However, again, we feel that is not in the spirit of reducing red tape and making things efficient. There was a concern in the letter that animal health inclusive care facility, child, hotel, motel, and industrial light were all non-agricultural uses that were listed in the ag gen district. And there was a concern that those uses may pop up in the intermunicipal development plan area on an ag parcel. Again, we do feel that some of these uses may or may not suit an ag parcel. However, again, they're not ag uses, and in spirit of the policies within the IDP with the city of Brooks, we have recommended, and you'll see in the draft bylaw, to remove those uses from the ag gen district. So now if somebody wants to start one of those businesses or an industrial light use, they're going to have to be required to go through the redistricting process if it's on an existing ag gen parcel. Again, the pit and quarry concern was listed as a discretionary use where it was not previously listed in the existing fringe district. We talked about this at the IDP committee, and we increased the setbacks distance to 1,000 meters, and that seemed acceptable at the time. If things have changed, we're definitely willing to discuss an increased setback to that, but I'm not sure. There's a concern again that school is listed as a discretionary use in the ag gen district, and this is something that's been ongoing for a long time. We've always had school in our agricultural district, but it wasn't listed in our existing fringe district. We had a lot of internal discussion here, and hearing the concerns from the city as well as looking back on historical permits that have been issued, we decided to come and recommend that we remove school as a use in the ag general district. We've heard from MPC and council in the past that schools should and could be pushed to more urbanized areas, definitely on paved roads. So we thought that maybe a redesignation of an agricultural piece, if somebody does want to construct or operate a school there, would be appropriate based on feedback from the city as well as historical discussions we've had around this table. Concern that solar panels freestanding greater than 56 meters squared is listed as a discretionary use where it was not listed before. This is an interesting one, and it really hits home to talk to the usefulness of the fringe district. If industrial scale solar is not a use that is acceptable in the fringe district, we think that's a great place to put the policy within the intermunicipal development plan and not try to tie it back to our land use bylaw. History has shown us that industrial scale solar is an acceptable use within the IDP area with the city. By the end of the year here, we'll have 3 full quarter sections built out with solar panels under 2 separate development permit applications. Now, the interesting thing with those development permit applications is the second one anyways. Both of those parcels that were permitted to have the panels installed on them were zoned fringe. Industrial scale solar was not a use in the fringe district, so they consulted us, they talked to us, they went through the process that the AUC, the regulator for these types of developments, insists that they go through. And we talked to them and we told them the process is it's not a use in the fringe district. You're going to need to rezone to rural industrial, and then you'll be able to construct your solar facility. So we sent them away, as we always do, to the AUC to get their approval from the AUC. Did their public consultation, they came back to us and asked for a redistricting. At that time, we addressed council and asked if council would like us to hold a public hearing on this redistricting, or alternatively, we had the option to forego that public hearing because the AUC had already done the public consultation, and part of that public consultation was that this parcel was going to be rezoned to rural industrial. So we made a decision that we would forego the public hearing on that land use redistricting and just read it through. That, in essence, made that paperwork just a formality. So more delays for the developer on the redistricting because we didn't need to hold a public hearing. We did put it in the discretionary use section of the Ag Gen district because we do still want people to be able to comment on it. We have the ability to add conditions, screening, so on and so forth. But once an industrial scale solar development's been approved by the AUC, and we've done a lot of research on this because we've been heavily involved in it in the last couple of years, the development permit is mainly a formality. The real question is, how long is it going to take to turn this development permit around and have it approved? And how many people do we need to circulate it to once the public consultation's already been done at the higher end regulator level? Moving on, the last point from the letter was one that was contained in another similar letter as well. Lack of necessary consultation was cited. It's one that really strikes a chord with administration here because we've been going through this process for a long time, and we feel we've fulfilled all of our obligations with regards to consultation with our partners, with other referral agencies, and we've gone to great degrees to involve everyone to every degree that we could. We had a public open house, as Brian mentioned, that was circulated June 23rd, I believe, and was open for 20 days or so. We had administrative meetings after that. We had an intermunicipal development plan committee meeting after that, and we came back to present the findings and what we've done to meet some of the requests of that committee, as well as the letter received from the city. So the lack of necessary consultation is not something that we feel is correct. So that was the end of the concerns as identified in the letter from city administration. Moving on, August 31st, we had an IDP meeting with the Village of Rosemary. We circulated the minutes. Again, have not received to date any responses back that I know of, and we did have some concerns come up during that IDP meeting, so we're going to look at addressing some of those. One concern was no permit necessary on shipping containers in an ag general district. So the concern was somebody could bring 5, 10, 20 shipping containers in without a permit on an ag district, as long as they met the requirements of that district, setbacks, so on and so forth, no stacking containers in non-industrial districts, and that was a concern. So we did take a look back and we went and we implemented a requirement that in an ag gen district, any shipping containers over 5 would become a discretionary use, and then they would have to come in and apply for a permit for that. That permit would then give the opportunity as a discretionary use to be circulated and commented on by the Rosemary Intermunicipal Development Plan Committee before MPC rendered a decision. Excuse me. Size of freestanding solar panels is a permitted use. So we have in the Ag Gen district created solar panels that are less than 28 meters squared. Not just a permitted use, but we're saying that they don't require a development permit as long as they meet the requirements of the district. Again, setbacks and so on, all the requirements of the Ag Gen district. Again, this is going back to applications that we've received over in the past for these small scale solar installations that are meant for on-site use, to operate a pivot, to run somebody's barn, to run their house. We felt and we've heard that it's an acceptable installation, and you know, if it doesn't meet the requirements of that land use district, it will get circulated and be available to comment on. There's a concern with offering the development officer 50% variance authority when issuing development permits. So this is an interesting one because we've talked about it in the past on how many applications end up on MPC's table with little to no discussion. So we did go and do some homework on what kind of variance powers and variance authorities might be acceptable to our council to dawn upon the administration here. We talked to the steering committee about it, and we came out with a recommendation of a 50% variance authority. Now, you know, that all that variance authority is saying is that the development officer has the authority to approve that permit as opposed to elevating it to MPC. When setbacks are not met, that development officer is still going to be required to circulate to adjacents and all the other referrals, because it is now a permitted use with a variance. Brian talked a little bit about our consultation chart in there, and that talks about anything with more than a 10% variance will be circulated. So the opportunity will not be lost for an IDP committee to comment on those, because they will still be circulated. They will just be able to be approved by the development officer. That being said, if the development officer ever has any concerns with that, or thinks, well, wait a minute, they have the option to elevate that to MPC for a decision as well. So we are putting a little bit of trust in our staff, and I think our staff does a great job and are only getting better at what they do. And I have no concerns that they will be able to handle that responsibility. There's a concern, the last concern in the letter from Rosemary was the IUP policy stating that all Rosemary applications need to be circulated to the county, but not all county applications need to be circulated back to the village of Rosemary. We discussed that at the meeting, and I believe that, and I think we all came to the same agreement that the word discretionary was missed in that second clause. The county, in our opinion, administration's opinion, doesn't need to see any permitted use applications from the village of Rosemary, because they're permitted uses. They are uses that are acceptable. So we're going to move forward and talk about amending the IDP with that minor change and any other minor changes that might be necessary. So that was the end of the letter from the village of Rosemary. On September 1st, last week, we received a letter from the village of Dutchess. Actually, CAO Fensky received a letter from CAO Kosh on September 1st, outlining some of the concerns that the village had with the land use bylaw update. This letter was very consistent with the City of Brooks letter, and I did want to respond to each point here individually too, because all of these concerns are equally important. So again, the concern with the removal of the fringe district, the verbiage there was verbatim to the letter from the City of Brooks, so I'm not going to revisit that. I already discussed our view on the fringe district, its usefulness, and how we're accommodating the removal of it without losing any regulation. There was a concern about the addition of feed mills, grain mills, abattoirs, anhydrous ammonia storage, and fertilizer plants as permitted uses and being duty bound to approve these developments. So again, this was another concern that came from the City of Brooks, and what we've done is we've taken agriculture intensive and agriculture processing, moved it over to a discretionary use category along with agriculture regulated, which again will give the IDP committee an opportunity to comment on the development, the servicing of that development, and any other conditions that may need to be placed on that application. Again, concern hotel motel is listed as a discretionary use in the Ag Gen district, and that has been removed. There was a concern that pit or quarry is listed as a discretionary use in the Ag Gen district. I've wrote here that, you know, we've addressed that with the city IDP committee and increased that from 500 meters to 1,000 meters. Unfortunately, this is the first time we've heard this concern from the village of Dutchess, and we haven't been able to have an IDP or administrative meeting to discuss some of these concerns. Concern again, a campground listed as discretionary use in the Ag Gen district. Yes, campground is listed as a discretionary use in the agricultural general district, and this was done in hopes that it would spur some development, tourism related, whatever else. We want people to have these outdoor recreation opportunities and whatnot. Understanding it's not completely agricultural use, you know, administration is definitely open to discussion of removing that campground from a list in the agricultural district. Again, going in line here a little bit, there's a concern from the village of Dutchess that recreation outdoor is listed as a discretionary use in the agricultural general district. This recreation outdoor actually stems from some conversations that we've been having with some people who are looking at possibly developing, not necessarily in the intermunicipal development plan boundary with the village of Dutchess, but elsewhere in ag general parcels in the county, actually just north of the highway, I believe, near JBS on Gun Club Road, kind of adjacent to the pistol range there. And we thought, again, outdoor recreation and outdoor activities, if you can open a paintball arena, a disc golf course, whatever, it's going to benefit everybody. It's going to benefit the region. So again, understanding recreation outdoor is not an agricultural use. Administration is open to council's discretion whether that should or shouldn't remain in there. Again, school is a discretionary use. We've already touched on that, so I won't revisit it. Large solar installation and wind farms. So wind farms we don't actually allow in the IDP area or in the Ag Gen district. Small wind energy conversion systems are listed as a discretionary use, but not in an industrial scale. This large-scale solar concern is another interesting concept, and it really goes to the point of why we think this is a policy better suited for an intermunicipal development plan, because each individual municipality, neighboring municipality, partnering municipality have different concerns, different issues, and that's what the IDPs are meant to deal with on an individual basis. What we're trying to get away from is trying to paint everything the same color with one brush and work around that, which is what's been trying to be done with this fringe district for so long. There's a concern with a tiny home / park model being listed as a use in the Ag Gen district where it previously was not. Again, this is one that we haven't had the opportunity to discuss because we haven't had much for communications or meeting requests. So that was the first time I've seen it. Again, this letter, the second last point, talks about the lack of consultation And this, again, it's really deflating for administration. I just want to point out again some timelines. June 23rd was when the notice was sent for the virtual open house to begin having a look at the draft land use bylaw. Beginning of July, we started to get some emails from municipal neighbors requesting meetings, so on and so forth. And on July 7th, 2021, village contract planner Diane Horvath inquired about the consultation process and timeline and whatnot, stating that our land use bylaw would be put on the village council agenda the following week. So that was great. On July 20th, again, Ms. Horvath sent an email stating that Dutchess administration would be on vacation until the end of July, and they would provide comments following that. Our department reached out again with another circulation at the beginning of August, as well as a phone call to try to solicit some feedback and such. And we didn't receive much of a response until this letter came last week stating the concerns. So the insinuation that the lack of appropriate consultation is lacking is really hard to hear from an administrative perspective when we have, in our opinion, done everything and more that we could have under the policies of our intermunicipal development plans for consultation and engagement. Yeah. Again, the last concern, transparent zoning of the village of Dutchess to own lands. So this was a concern that, as Brian mentioned, in an effort to be more efficient and whatnot, we've moved our land use bylaw, land use mapping to our online web map. So that is the only place it will be accessed, the only place it will be updated, and relieve the necessity to update tons and tons of paper maps every time something happens within the actual document. On the website, there was some concern with the shading of the parcels and the legend. Didn't specifically identify the exact names of the parcels or the land use districts. That has been rectified online now. So if that map is brought up, I feel like we've dealt with those concerns appropriately. And that was the last concern that came in the letter from the village of Dutchess. On September 3rd, last week, we received a letter from the village of Rosemary. Again, CEO Fensky received a letter from the village of Rosemary with a few additional concerns. Development not requiring a permit, agriculture, solar panels, unlimited shipping containers in Ag Gen. Again, I think I've been over the agricultural buildings. We're trying to reduce red tape. We're looking at the history of these things and looking at how many concerns have we heard out of any of the IDP committees in the past decade regarding shipping or regarding an agricultural building, or is it just slowing down the timeline for approval? Solar panels, again, we're talking small scale solar panels, 28 meters squared in area or less for on-site use, pivots, barns, houses, so on and so forth. And again, we're looking at history and trying to streamline the process. Again, the unlimited shipping containers, I already discussed that because that was something that was addressed at the IDP committee meeting, and we've got that in there now. The next, the development officer being granted the 50% variance. I've been through that, so I won't sit on that for too long. And then there's a concern about the removal of the fringe district, and there's an interesting comment in this letter that something along the lines of, I don't have the letter in front of me, but wouldn't it be easier to control it within the land use bylaw instead of individual agreements with other each of our municipal neighbors? And I think I explained where we're going with that and why we're going where we're going with that, in the fact that not everybody is the same. The city of Brooks may think that industrial scale solar is an acceptable use in their IDP area, where the village of Dutchess may not. So why are we trying to control it in our land use bylaw instead of the plans that we have in partnership with these municipalities to actually talk about that specific area of the county? MD of Tabor also replied. It didn't get into this package or this RFD because it came just Tuesday, and I wasn't about to update this RFD again. The correspondence from the MD of Tabor and my response is included in the package. You know, again, some similar issues, not quite as many as the other municipalities, but definitely a few. The first one, again, being some of the discretionary uses, the agricultural, intensive and agricultural processing being permitted uses. The MD of Tabor would like the opportunity to comment on those developments should they happen within a mile or two of the river. And again, we've moved those to a discretionary use to provide that opportunity. They're looking for clarification on our first parcel out subdivision policy. I responded again that we were going to be reading in our subdivision authority bylaw, and it was just a little weird that that would be one of their concerns across the river. Their last comment was they suggest that we ingrain the consultation requirements for municipalities that are outlined in our IDPs in our land use bylaw. And again, this is something that we're really trying to get away from, is mixing the two, because when we mix the two, we find ourselves in the situation that we're talking about right now. When we update our land use bylaw, we now need to update the municipal development plan because they're direct links to each other, instead of being more general and high level policies. So we let them know that you know that's where we're going. We understand the hierarchy of plans that Brian had on the screen earlier, and we understand when a development occurs and where it occurs, what plans are relevant to that application, be it development or subdivision. We have a very qualified, capable staff here in the planning and development department, and I think they do a good job. We pride ourselves on procedures and processes, and when a development occurs in a specific location, be that an IDP area, we know that that plan and the policies contained within it apply. What we don't want to do is do an amendment to our IDP with Tabor and change our consultation requirements, which would then mean we've got to change our land use bylaw as well, because we're saying the same thing twice. It's the same thing as a lot of Brownlee's comments. They're saying the MGA says that you don't need to say it in here and muddy the water, or the subdivision and development regulations already lay this out. You do not need to lay it out again. Because you know what, the MGA changes, and so does the subdivision and development regulations, and we don't want to be in the business of monitoring those changes and ensuring that we're remaining consistent with those plans. I think I've talked enough, so I am more than willing and happy to answer any questions anybody might have.
Thank you. Questions from council? Any questions from council? This is an opportunity to get further information. Remember, that's what the public hearing is about. All right. Kelly? Kelly, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a question, Jeff, around the IDP with the Village of Dutchess. Was that meeting not able to be scheduled because of holidays, or what was the thinking there? Because there was a comment in the letter that they wanted to go to some sort of reconciliation board or something. So can you speak to that for a minute?
Yes, thank you for the question. No, there was no intermunicipal development plan committee meeting with the Village of Dutchess. As mentioned early in the process, there was some minor email communications, and then from the contracted planner with Old Man River Regional Services Corporation. And it was noted that the CAO of Dutchess would be on holidays for a certain period in time. Once that period lapsed again, another circulation and a phone call was made, but there was never a request for a meeting of the IDP committee.
Thank you.
Any other questions to Jeff or Brian who have presented? No? All right, are there any other presentations or questions from people who are here? And we'll have to ask that you use the mics because it's really not easy to hear in here, and it's even worse out for these people that are linked in electronically. So
thank you. Let me know if you can't hear me okay. Is that good?
just as much as you can speak into that is great.
Through the chair to Mayor and Council, thank you for the opportunity to speak to Bylaw 201621. I'm here from Orsk, but I'm on behalf of the City of Brooks today. You will have seen the letter in the agenda package that was provided by the city last week, responding to the land use bylaw that received first reading by Council. The county shared an updated version of the land use bylaw last Friday afternoon. So that just left administration with 2 days to review the new document. While we appreciate that changes have been made to the land use bylaw to address some of the city's concerns, we are still concerned with the lack of time for review of this updated document prior to the public hearing. Ultimately, the city's main concern still stands, that removal of the fringe district is a decision that should be made at the intermunicipal decision-making level. So we'd really like to see that decision have an opportunity for both county council and city council to discuss the matter in keeping with the policies and intent of the intermunicipal development plan. So while removal of many of the uses of concern within the agricultural general land use district is definitely a step in the right direction, the city requires an opportunity to review the updated district as well as other changes to the land use bylaw with the City of Brooks Council. Therefore, today we respectfully request that Council not move forward with second and third reading of Bylaw 201621 until adequate time has been provided for review of the updated document. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Are there any questions? Clarence?
Would an additional 2 weeks be enough time?
It should be adequate for us to take back to our council for discussion, as long as it works with Madeline's schedule to be able to review everything thoroughly prior to that. Yep, that would probably be sufficient.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you. Are there other further information pieces to be given to us today? Tony?
I'm here today on behalf of Village Dutchess, and I will not suggest that I know the complete ins and outs of this proposed land use bylaw that is before us today. I do think the intermunicipal development plan should have been opened up prior to the land use bylaw. My concerns around how this will affect the Village of Dutchess. We have written our concerns out with the help of a planner from Orsk and submitted them in the time allowable. We worry about the fringe area being removed. This has offered us peace of mind in the past, and we'll work together with the county on proposals that affect us both. We worry about what could happen next door to the Village, our Dutchess residents. that we never saw coming and the backlash from it. We continue to watch out for our community, and we hope that we can work with the county to this end. We wrote a letter itemizing our concern. Tuesday morning, we received a document with over 700 changes in it, all to be reviewed by today. Myself and the Village of Dutchess Council requested the County of Newell Council delay the further readings of the bylaw until these matters are addressed. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. Questions? Questions for Tony? Okay. Oh, Kelly, sorry.
Yeah, just before you leave, Tony, my question is along the same lines as what I asked Jeff. So do you plan to have an IDP meeting?
Well, I think that's what should happen.
And yeah, and can you tell me why it hasn't happened up until now?
I don't think we were invited to one.
Okay, so we should have requested one of your IDP committee. I see. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Council.
Any other information to be received? Remember, Council, this is your opportunity to get information. Matt?
I think I'd like to know if the 2 weeks is going to be long enough for our other partners that Councillor Amulung asked of the city, if 2 weeks is sufficient, because I know that our staff actually did reach out to the Village of Dutchess and offer an IDP meeting back in August. So if we want to get an IDP meeting together, I know that our staff are open to that, and we'll make whatever time works for the village. But I don't want to be looking at a 2-week timeline for the city if we need 4 weeks to get things done with the village, because the earliest dates I had back were October from them to meet.
I think that would be pretty reasonable that we have been working on this a long time, so 2 weeks longer should be sufficient.
Madam Chair, just know that we can't hear any comments not used by a microphone.
Thank you. Could you come back to the mic, please, Tony? It's hard to hear.
No, what was the question again, Kelly?
Her question was to have you, she couldn't hear. No one can hear if we don't use the mic. So
okay.
the question was about, we would like to get this completed, obviously, and there's a long time frame already taken place. So I don't think it's unreasonable for us to ask that we finish it up in the next 2 weeks.
If everybody can agree to a time to meet. If there's a lot of things that are happening with it all over. We'd have to go back to council and see if we can discuss it more, and then we'll go from that after we see what timeline is.
We've had quite a few months already.
Well, but the first we really heard about it at council was on the 23rd. I know it come prior, but we didn't have a council meeting till August 23rd. And then that's when we heard about it. And then we had Dan Horvath for ORSC come and do up a letter for us that you have received. And just the timeline of that last changes, the 700 changes in it. You want it all read in 2 days. The last document that came out. We never received it until Tuesday morning.
All right, take that as information. Any other,
Did you hear that, Kelly?
No, not a word, Tony.
Okay, we'll try to work with the county on it and get a meeting set up, and then we can do it. I don't know if 2 weeks is enough time or not. I hope so.
Claire?
Well, Madam Chair, the Village of Dutchess has outlined some of the areas. We've given preliminary answers to those areas, and that shouldn't be a whole big discussion. What the points that they've put forward, I don't see why we shouldn't be able to work that out in 2 weeks' time.
I hope we can.
All right. We have that as information to work on meetings in the next 2 weeks with Dutchess and with Brooks, is what I've heard. Is there anything else? Information required? Seeing none, we will need a motion to move out of public hearing. Brian moves?
No, actually, we've heard the response. My question is for the Village of Rosemary. We've heard the response for the timelines from Dutchess, commitment to try to get it done in 2 weeks, and from the city. I'm just curious about Rosemary also, because it is dependent upon, all our partners, and we want to work with all of you, so.
I assume that their concerns had been answered, but yes? It would appear they're good to go.
Okay, then I'll make the motion to move out of camera. Or sorry, out of public hearing.
Out of public hearing, all right. All in favor? Did you guys hear that? We're out of public hearing. Good. Opposed? No one is opposed. All right, thank you everyone for your attendance here today. And just a note to everybody here around our table, we have a delegation at 1 o'clock, Halo, so grab a sandwich hopefully and we'll be reconvening. So thank you everyone.